And today, we're going deep on something pretty fascinating.
What have we got?
Excerpts from this book, well, more like a handbook, really, called Built for God, the BFG movement. Specifically, Chapter 65, Simplicity of Life. Get this, it's described as a Christian edition of the Tao Te Ching, aims to, and I quote, restore the truth.
Mixing Eastern philosophy with Christianity. I'm intrigued. What's this chapter all about?
Well, it really digs into this whole idea of simplicity as true wisdom, the power of humility, and of course the role of the Holy Spirit in our lives.
Sounds like they're going for a pretty deep understanding of living authentically.
Exactly. So for you, dear listener, today's mission, we're going to unpack all these core ideas about simplicity of life that this chapter throws at us. And we're going to do it in a way that helps you really get it. Think of us as your guides through this philosophical jungle.
So let's dive in.
All right. So the chapter starts off right off the bat with this statement. In ancient times, devout messengers of God used their wisdom not to enlighten people, but rather to be the way and the truth and the life. What hits you first about that?
It's definitely a shift, isn't it? It's not about just talking the talk, right? It's about being the truth.
Walking the walk, not just dazzling everyone with how much you know.
I am the way and the truth and the life. So it's real wisdom isn't just something you learn, it's something you become.
It's a state of being?
Totally. And you know what else is interesting? They contrast this with those religious leaders who are all about, intellectual dominance. They even reference Matthew 23, those guys who burden everyone else and seek their own glory.
It really makes you think. Have you ever met someone where it's not their words, but their actions, their whole being that really speaks to you?
Absolutely. I think we've all encountered those people where it's their integrity just shines through, their actions are louder than words.
And this chapter seems to be saying that that's the kind of wisdom we should be aiming for. It then goes on to talk about the consequences of prioritizing cleverness. It says, people become difficult to govern due to their excessive cleverness.
Yeah, I can see that. Too much cleverness, not enough heart. It's like trying to outsmart everyone all the time. It gets messy.
For sure. So what they're saying is when leaders try to be all sneaky and manipulative, it kind of backfires, right? It breeds distrust.
Exactly. It's like building a house on a foundation of sand. It's not going to last. And the text actually says, governing with cleverness brings thieves among the people.
Wow. That's a pretty strong image.
It is, right. And then it offers this really interesting alternative. Governing people without cleverness brings blessings upon the people.
So it's suggesting that honesty and humility actually work better.
It really seems that way, yeah. It's counterintuitive, right? In a world where everyone's trying to be the smartest person in the room, it's maybe simplicity and genuineness are the real keys to a good and just society.
It's refreshing. I think a lot of people were feeling burnt out on all the, the posturing and the manipulation.
Oh, totally. And it's funny because they back this up with 1 Corinthians 3.19. The wisdom of this world is foolishness in God's sight.
It's a whole different perspective on what it means to be wise.
Totally. It makes you wonder, how many times have we seen someone's clever schemes just blow up in their face?
Oh, countless times. It's like that saying, pride comes before the fall.
Yeah, exactly.
Okay, so after laying out these two contrasting ideas, the chapter gives us what it calls two basic principles. It says, know these two basic principles. Forever knowing these principles is a profound understanding of the mystic spirit. That sounds like a big deal. What are these principles exactly?
Well, in a nutshell, it boils down to this. Leading without resorting to all that clever manipulation and embracing a simple life. And they link these ideas to a deeper understanding of what they call the mystic spirit, which they identify as the Holy Spirit.
So it's not just about behavior, it's about a deep spiritual shift.
Yeah, it's internal transformation leads to external change. And the text actually describes the Holy Spirit in a really powerful way. It says, the Holy Spirit runs deep, penetrating, and far-reaching. It returns all things to their natural state of perfect harmony. And there are some really interesting scriptural references here too, like 1 Corinthians 2:9-11 and Hebrews 12.22-24.
It's like the Holy Spirit is this force that brings everything back into balance. It's always working to restore order and peace.
Right. And it's not just about individual peace, but harmony in the world around us too. Really resonates with the whole concept of reconciliation. And for those listening wanting to grasp these ideas quickly but fully, this is key. Understanding these two seemingly simple principles through the lens of the Holy Spirit's work, that's how you get to that deeper spiritual understanding. It's like unlocking a door to a whole new level of wisdom.
I love that. It's not just about knowing the right things, it's about embodying them.
Exactly. And that's where the next section comes in, titled Renewal, where they introduce this framework: mindset, aim, and practice, or MAP.
Okay, so starting with mindset. First up, wisdom as the path, not just knowledge, which really echoes that opening line we talked about.
Yeah.
And it links back to John 14.6 and also James 1.5, that part about asking God for wisdom. What does this mean practically?
It means wisdom is more than just head knowledge. It's about how you live. Constantly ask yourself, are my actions, my choices, in line with what I believe? It's one thing to know the way, it's another thing to walk it.
Big difference for sure. Okay, next mindset point is the dangers of over-reliance on cleverness. They're drawing on that difficult to govern line again. How does this shape our thinking?
Well, it's a call for humility. We can't rely on our own cleverness all the time. Sometimes we need to trust in a wisdom that's bigger than us,
Trusting in something beyond ourselves.
Exactly. Because sometimes our own cleverness just leads us down these crazy rabbit holes when a simpler, more faith-based approach could have kept us on the right track.
Makes sense. Next, the consequences of clever governance, linking back to the idea that it breeds dishonesty. The scriptural links are Proverbs 15.27 and 15.9. How should this affect our perspective?
Well, it reminds us that our actions have consequences, especially if we're in a position of leadership. If we're not careful, our cleverness can actually hurt people. So we need to be really intentional about being honest, transparent, and leading with genuine care.
Really putting others first.
Yeah, and the next point really builds on that. It's simple and honest governance leads to blessing, drawing from that line about governing without cleverness. James 3.17 and Matthew 5.8 are the references. What kind of shift in thinking are we talking about here? It's about believing that honesty and integrity actually lead to good things for everyone. It's about trusting that the straightforward approach, even if it seems naive, is actually the most effective in the long run.
So honesty is the best policy, always.
Seems like it. And then we have understanding the two paths, human wisdom versus godly wisdom. This again goes back to those two basic principles in 1 Corinthians 3.19 and James 3.17. How should this distinction shape our thinking? There's always a choice, right? There's the wisdom of the world, which is all about, getting ahead, playing the game. And then there's godly wisdom, which is about something deeper, something more meaningful. And we have to choose which path we're going to follow.
Making conscious choices.
Right. Every decision, every action is a step down one path or the other.
And finally, under mindset, we have the Holy Spirit restores harmony, which builds on that description of the Spirit's work with references to Philippians 4.7 and Galatians 5.22-23. What kind of perspective should we have about the Holy Spirit's role?
It's about surrender, I think. Trusting that the Holy Spirit is working in us and through us to bring peace and order to our lives and to the world around us. It's not about forcing things. It's about being open and receptive to the Spirit's guidance.
Letting go of control.
Exactly. And from that place of surrender, we can move into the aim section, which is all about, well, what are we aiming for?
Yeah, makes sense. So first up, we have aim for wisdom as the path to life, echoing the way, truth, and life idea, referencing John 14.6 and James 1.5. What does this mean for our goals?
I think it means that our ultimate goal should be to live wisely, not just to be smart or successful, but to live a life that reflects godly wisdom in every area, our relationships, our work, our everything.
A life of purpose.
Yeah, a life that matters. And the next aim really flows from that aim for humility over cleverness and leadership. This comes from the difficult to govern line, referencing Matthew 23.11 and Philippians 2.3. What kind of leadership should we be aspiring to? Well, the kind that puts others first, doesn't try to control or manipulate, but serves and empowers. True leadership isn't about being the smartest person in the room. It's about lifting others up.
Leading by example.
Exactly. And then we have aim for simplicity and governance in life, which comes from that blessings upon the people line with Matthew 5.37 and James 3.17 as references. What should we be aiming for in our leadership and in our daily lives? Straightforwardness, honesty, simplicity. It's about cutting through the BS and focusing on what really matters. Living with integrity.
Keeping things real.
Exactly. No hidden agendas, no playing games, just straight talk and genuine connection.
Love it. Okay, the next aim is aim to avoid manipulation and lead by integrity. And this one introduces a new line. People who make promises lightly are not trustworthy, along with Matthew 5.37 and Proverbs 10.9. What should we be striving for in our relationships?
Trustworthiness, reliability, being people of our word. It's about recognizing that our words have power and we need to use them carefully.
Being accountable for our actions.
Yes. And that leads into the next aim. Aim for the restoration of harmony through humility, which connects to the Holy Spirit's work with references to Matthew 5.9 and Galatians 5.22-23. What should our intention be when there's conflict? To be peacemakers. To approach disagreements with humility, seeking to understand rather than to win, to let the Holy Spirit guide us towards reconciliation and healing.
Seeking common ground.
Exactly. And the last aim is aim to avoid worldly attachments and live according to God's will. Based on that line, the wise do not desire what men desire. They do not store up treasures of this world. And referencing Matthew 6.1920 and 6.21, what's the ultimate goal here? It's about shifting our focus from the temporary to the eternal, It's about recognizing that true fulfillment comes not from material possessions or worldly success, but from a deep and abiding relationship with God.
So it's about prioritizing our spiritual growth over our material desires.
Exactly. It's about seeking true riches, not just earthly ones.
Makes sense. Okay, so we've covered mindset and aim. Now for the final piece of the renewal framework, practice. First up, practice wisdom as the way, the truth, and the life, reiterating the core idea and referencing John 14.6 and James 3.17 again. What does this actually look like in our daily lives?
It means making wise choices moment by moment, It's about taking what we know and putting it into action in our relationships, our work, our families, everything.
Putting our knowledge into practice.
Yeah, it's not enough to just know what's right. We have to do it.
Makes sense. Okay, next we have practice humility in leadership, which stems from those challenges posed by cleverness, referencing Matthew 23.11 and Philippians 2.3. How do we put this into action when we're in a leadership role?
By serving others, by listening to different perspectives, by putting the needs of others before our own. It's about remembering that leadership is a responsibility, not a privilege. It's about empowering others, not controlling them.
Being a true servant leader.
Exactly. And then there's practice simplicity in decision-making, which comes from the blessings of governing without cleverness, referencing Matthew 5.37 and James 3.17. How can we simplify our decision-making process? By getting back to basics, stripping away all the unnecessary complications and focusing on our core values. It's about choosing the honest, straightforward path, even if it's not the easiest or the most glamorous.
Cutting to the chase.
Yeah, and being decisive, not getting bogged down in endless analysis.
The next practice point is practice integrity in your promises, which stems from that warning about making light promises, referencing Matthew 5.37 and Proverbs 10.9. How can we be more reliable?
By meaning what we say, and by following through on our commitments, big or small. It's about building a reputation for trustworthiness so people know they can count on us.
Being someone people can rely on.
Yeah, and that ties in with practice harmony and restoration in relationships, which connects to the Holy Spirit's work, referencing Matthew 5.9 and Romans 12.18. How can we work towards peace in our relationships? By choosing forgiveness over resentment, by being quick to listen and slow to speak, by seeking to understand before being understood. It's about being proactive in building and maintaining healthy, harmonious relationships.
Building bridges instead of walls.
Exactly. And the final practice point is practice detachment from worldly desires, based on the idea that the wise don't chase after material things, referencing Matthew 6.1920 and 6.21. How do we practically shift our focus away from those desires? By recognizing that true wealth isn't measured in possessions, but in our relationship with God and in the impact we have on others. It's about letting go of the need to accumulate more and more stuff and focusing instead on what truly matters: love, compassion, service, generosity.
It's about investing in what truly lasts.
Exactly. And it's amazing because this whole idea of simplicity and humility isn't just a Christian concept. The chapter actually goes into this in a section called Respond, where it connects these ideas to other faiths and traditions.
Oh yeah, that's one of the most interesting parts of this whole chapter. So the first point they make is wisdom as the way, the truth, and the life, comparing the Christian view with similar ideas in Buddhism, Islam, and Hinduism. What's the common thread there?
Well, it seems like all these different faiths, even though they have their own unique beliefs and practices, they all recognize that wisdom is essential for a truly meaningful life. It's not about dogma or ritual. It's about living in a way that aligns with a deeper truth. Like Buddhists have the Noble Eightfold Path, Muslims have the guidance of the Quran, Hindus have Dharma and Bhakti. It's all about seeking a path to a more fulfilling, more purposeful life.
So regardless of your background, wisdom is a universal goal.
Absolutely. And that pursuit of wisdom can actually bring people together. It can help us see beyond our differences and find common ground.
Building bridges through wisdom.
I love that. And the next point is humility in leadership and service, which compares Christian teachings on humility with similar ideas in Buddhism, Islam, and Hinduism.
Well, it seems like across all these traditions, true leadership is about serving others. It's not about power or control, but about humility, compassion, and putting the needs of others first. Like you see this in Mark 10.43 in Christianity, in the Buddhist emphasis on compassion and letting go of ego, in the Quran's call to humility and service, and in the Hindu concept of selfless action in the Bhagavad Gita.
It's a universal leadership principle.
Totally. And it's a refreshing alternative to the kind of power-hungry leadership we see so often in the world.
For sure. Okay, the next shared truth they highlight is simplicity in action, comparing Matthew 5.37 with the emphasis on simplicity in Buddhism, Islam, and Hinduism. Well, it's about living with integrity, being straightforward and honest in our actions, not overcomplicating things or trying to manipulate situations. Like Buddhists talk about the Four Noble Truths leading to a simpler life. Muslims emphasize moderation and sincerity. And Hindus talk about acting without attachment to outcomes. It's all about being authentic and intentional in our actions. And the final shared truth they explore is detachment from material desires, comparing Matthew 6.19-20 with the concept of non-attachment in Buddhism, the focus on inner purity in Islam, Quran 98.7, and the practice of detachment in Hinduism, like karma yoga in the Bhagavad Gita. What's the shared wisdom about our relationship with material things? It's about recognizing that true happiness doesn't come from stuff, that attachment to material possessions can actually lead to suffering and keep us from experiencing true fulfillment. All these traditions, in their own ways, encourages us to let go of those attachments and focus on what truly matters: our spiritual growth, our relationships, our service to others. It's about simplifying our lives and focusing on what brings true joy and meaning.
And to really drive home this point about shared truths, the chapter even quotes St. Thomas Aquinas, "Truth cannot contradict truth."
I love that quote. It's so simple, but so profound. It reminds us that even though we may have different beliefs and practices, there's a fundamental truth that connects us all.
So as we wrap up this deep dive into Chapter 65 of the BFG Handbook, what would you say are the biggest takeaways for our listeners?
Well, I think it's a powerful reminder that simplicity and humility are timeless virtues. They're not just religious concepts, they're principles that can guide us towards a more fulfilling and meaningful life. And it's not just about what we believe, it's about how we live. It's about choosing wisdom over cleverness, service over self-promotion, and integrity over manipulation. And it's about recognizing that these values are shared by people of all faiths and backgrounds.
It's about connecting with our shared humanity.
Exactly. And this deep dive has hopefully given you some food for thought, some practical tools you can use to bring more simplicity and humility into your own life.
Yeah, and it's a great reminder that we don't have to figure everything out on our own. We can lean on the wisdom of the ages, the teachings of our faith, and the support of our communities to guide us on this journey.
So as you go about your day, think about this. Where in your life could you benefit from embracing simplicity a little more? What would it look like to prioritize humility in your interactions and leadership?
And how can you connect with others on a deeper level, beyond your differences, by focusing on these shared values of wisdom, service, and integrity? Thanks for joining us on this journey of discovery. We'll see you next time.